think I'm saying, well, you don't need to go to church to listen to a pastor. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you put too much of an emphasis on needing to hear from that one person because you can't hear on your own, and that you need that person to hear from God for you, and that's why they're your pastor, is so they can explain the Bible to you, and they can hear the Spirit of God for you, and then they can tell you what you need to hear because you can't hear for yourself. It should be obvious that that's just wrong. But I think a lot of churches end up kind of falling into that pattern a lot, and then because the pastor is put in such a high position of, in some cases, it's worship, because nothing can be done without that person. It's like you are indispensable. I think what ends up happening is, I forgot what I was going to say there about that. Can't remember what it was, but it should be clear to you that that's unhealthy, because if you have too much of an expectation from one person to tell you what God is saying, then you sort of don't grow. If you think of yourself like as a child who never takes a walk, doesn't develop their muscles in their legs, and they're just laying there the whole time, and you just have to feed them, change their diaper, that's it, because they never learn to walk themselves. It's kind of like that. In fact, the writer of Hebrews mentioned something along those lines, referring to using a metaphor of milk and strong meat, that at this point in your life you should be able to digest the strong meat, meaning some sort of intense, challenging, demanding words of God, but instead you're like a child just suckling on its mother and just subsisting on milk. So really, we need to be grown up at this point. I mean, we are 2,000 years after the coming of Jesus. And my own thought on that is I really kind of feel like we're in a time where there's accelerated growth made available to us if we are willing to be free of our encumbrances. Not that, if you lived 300 years ago, the growth would have been much slower, but this isn't my own particular thing, so I'm not really prophesying this or anything like that, so I just feel like there's enough things going on in the world that really kind of reflect to me that we are in these last days before Jesus' return. And if that's the case, then it makes sense to me that I'm also sensing this, almost an urgency to, put away those things that have so easily beset you in the past. Again, a Hebrews reference. And I'd be reading from a Bible and showing you where some of these verses are, but I lost my favorite Bible. I don't know what happened to it. I think I went to a diner or something late one night and I left it there, and then I went back to see if it was there. It wasn't there, so I don't know what happened. I really don't, but that's okay. I have several Bibles, so no excuse. I need to have one available at all times. Okay. So anyway, that's one of the things I'm non-traditional about, is the people put too much of an importance on the position of a pastor. And I think you can see it a lot, like on TV. Like a lot of the pastors just are so focused on money. Come on, please. It's like I wouldn't mind it so much if like their words were balanced, like, you know, because there are, you know, I believe, you know, patterns of the kingdom that, you know, you reap what you sow. You know, you give to God, God will give back to you 100-fold. So all of that, you know, can apply to, you know, material wealth. But to just focus on that, like 90% of the time, if not 100% of the time, instead of, you know, sowing seed into the fertile ground of faith, and to see your character grow 100-fold, and for you to become less temperamental, less prone to anger, less impatient, less complaining, and you become peaceful, joyful, loving, courageous, perseverant. You know, it would be easier to respect these people on television if they would balance what they're saying about sowing into the kingdom in this way of, like, you sow a seed, not just to just throw seed on the ground and, oh well, whatever. No, you have an expectation of what's coming back. You know, you're going to have tomatoes over here and peppers over there and flowers over there and whatever. You have an expectation based on what you're sowing. So if you're sowing, like, believing God, you know, and asking for more faith, a more loving heart, a sound mind, a peaceful spirit, a courageous spirit, and, you know, you're praying in faith, and you're living with a good conscience, and you're not, you know, living a life of utter debauchery and, you know, self-fulfillment or self-service all the time, then you should expect to receive more love, more faith, more joy, more peace, and so that you truly can become like Jesus now. Not 5 weeks from now, but now. You asked for it. It's God's will that you have it. So you should be expecting to be stronger, more courageous, more loving, more peaceful, more joyful now. Because you've sowed that seed of faith. And I would just like to hear that once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times from these preachers on TV who just always talk about sowing. When they talk about sowing seed, they're talking about sending your money to the, you know, to the ministry. And who knows what they do with that money? I mean, they'll show you pictures of, you know, starving children somewhere, and they'll say, well, it's going to them. Well, if it's going to them, then why are you driving a, you know, the latest Mercedes? And why are there 5 rings on each of your hands? And why are you always wearing these most expensive suits? And why is your church, you know, this huge, humongous place? And whenever it's filled, you always feel the need to ask for money because now you've got 5,000 people in your church, so great opportunity to have them all give more money to me. So what? So that you can spread the gospel and the message about becoming more like Jesus, or just to get more and more and more? And I don't know. That's one way that I'm not traditional. You know, I look at a lot of those tithing or the schemes, and, you know, giving to ministries. You know, if you send $1,000 right now, we'll put your name up on this plaque. Oh wow. You know, just like crazy things like that. And I just don't see Jesus doing any of that. I seriously don't believe he would do any of